You're listening to the Parents of Hardworking Teens podcast, episode 100. How to help your teen become a rock-solid student who is happy, smart, and successful in their study, bingo quiz style. I'm Katie Jones, and with over 15 years in education as an award-winning high school teacher, international external examiner, and as a study coach, I've helped thousands of students skyrocket their results and confidence. And this podcast is where I share all my insights, tactics, and tips with you, the parent, so you can help your hardworking teen get happy, smart, and successful in their study, and have you both enjoy the journey along the way. This is the Parents of Hardworking Teens podcast. Hey VIPs, I hope you and your teens are doing fantastically. I cannot tell you how totally delighted I am to be recording this episode today, because I have felt like a 7-year-old waiting for their birthday party for the past few weeks. I can tell you. You know by now that I am a real planner. So when I was starting to think about episode 100, we were at episode 88 or something like that. And I knew then that I wanted to do something a little bit special for this. And here we are, finally. So if you are just joining me for the first time, this is the first episode that you have come to, maybe you've had it shared from a friend or family member, or come to hear about it through some link on social media, a huge welcome. I am so glad you're here. And aside from starting at episode 1, which you should totally go back and do right after this, then this is a great episode to be joining on. And if you've been with me since the very start, then an extra special shout out to you and a huge thank you for joining me and being here throughout. It's amazing that you are so committed to your teen, and I want to say a big thank you for just letting me share. Maybe it's your dog walks, maybe it's your drives to work, maybe it's your meal prep. Those are all the things when I listen to podcasts. So thank you for sharing that time with me, and I really appreciate you being here. Now, here is how this episode is going to work. I have been requesting and collating over the past few weeks feedback from parents and students about what information or advice or strategies I have shared either recently or over the years, either through the podcast, through my webinars, through my paid programs and trainings, that have felt most useful or been really impactful for you. And it could have been something small that just made you think about or see something a little bit differently, or it could be something that made a big difference in some way, whether it's to your teen's results, to their confidence, how they approach their study, or just how you're able to talk to each other when it comes to school assignments, whatever it might be. And I have taken all of that feedback on board over the past week or so that I can create what I wanted to be some sort of best of collection here for episode 100. But I was very conscious about what I wanted that best of collection to look like or be. I wanted it to be, first of all, useful for everyone, parents and students, and both for those of you whose teens have gone through the 10-week Grade Transformation Program or Next Level Coaching, and for those of you who haven't. Plus, I wanted it to be more than just a simple repeat of things that I've already said or delivered. You know, when sometimes they clip up bits of past episodes, I didn't want it to just be that, because you guys can go back and listen to all of those episodes whenever you want. So I also wanted to create something that I felt would be actually practical and actionable and tangible, something that could actually be used and not just listened to kind of passively. You know, I'm against all things that are passive when it comes to taking in or actioning information and concepts. And finally, I wanted it to be a little bit fun, kind of interactive, something that is actually more of an event, as much as that is possible on a podcast. So after much brainstorming, a couple of, I will say, slightly crazy, those maybe not ideas, and many, many hours of putting everything together, I bring to you rock solid bingo. 16 ways to become a rock solid student in a bit of a game show style. Now, I will just say I did not come up with this idea. It is an activity that I used to use as a teaching activity, and I learned from, somewhere else, somebody else. And I would use when we were using or learning keywords, subject-specific terminology, and that is really where I got the idea from. So hopefully you like it. It is time to get those scorecards at the ready and maybe team up with your teen and let's play. Because first up, you're going to want to ideally download or print the bingo card resource. Now, it is at www.rocksolidstudy.com/100. That's the digits 100. So you could go to that link anytime and go grab it. So pause this now and go grab it. Now, the aim of the game is to work towards getting a line, and even we want to really aim for a full house on your teen's bingo card. So if you have more than one teen in year 9 to 12 or 10 to 13 high school right now, then you can even make this into maybe a little bit of a friendly competition and see if we can turn it into a bit of a challenge. Now, I'm holding up my sheet, my bingo card. There are 16 squares, one for each letter of Rock Solid Student. And each one has a corresponding skill that will make your teen a Rock Solid Student when it comes to studying efficiently and effectively and having them become happy, smart, and successful in their study. So right here and now, I am going to describe or define each and every one of those skills. And if your teen can do it and is doing it, is skilled in it, you check it off. And if they can't yet or aren't yet, important word, yet, then this can form your action plan to keep moving them forwards and progressing. Because I have also added within each box, with each skill, exactly where I train your teen in that skill inside the 10-week grade transformation program. And if they've completed the program, then you will know where to go back and find it to have them review or recap and get them retrained at it if you choose to go back and recap, or where I should say, let me get that right, or where they will be trained at it if you choose to enroll them in future. So just before we begin, let me just say this. The more of these skills and tools and techniques and strategies that your teen has in their tool belt, the better. But that doesn't mean that you have to have every single one of these ticked in order for them to be successful. So often, and this was so much of the feedback that I got back in the lead up to this episode, just one or two of these skills or strategies can make a huge difference. So many of you have told me exactly that in your feedback. So heads down, let's play Rock Solid Bingo. Okay. R for Rock Solid Student. R is for revises actively. So many students are using passive revision techniques like rewriting their notes, reading over information. I literally just had a coaching call with a student who was doing this. They hadn't yet reached Catapult 5 in the 10-week grade transformation program, and I coached them on some specific ways to make their revision more active. Not just making or copying out copious palm cards, not just watching tutorial videos. They need to be actually processing the information and taking it from one format into another. So if your teen is revising actively for every test and exam, then you can check off this box on your card. And if not, or they need a recap, then like I said, Catapult 5 in the 10-week grade transformation program is where they will get that training. Next, O. O is for optimizing time and effort. A Rock Solid student spends their time and puts in effort into the things that will give them the biggest ROE, return on effort. Things that will really move the needle, not just keep them busy studying, taking up their time, because they know that their confidence is actually going to be dented if they put in a lot of time and effort and their results don't reflect that time, effort, and their ability. When they have built the skills and tools to optimize that time and effort, they get a return that matches on it. Now, I'm going to go more into this on the final item, number 16 on the list. So definitely stay tuned for more on this. Okay, C. C is for, can you guess it? Yes, it is command words. C is for command words. This is one of the 6 elements of exam technique. And being able to identify command words and then respond accurately to all of the different command words is one of the most common things that parents and students tell me has made the biggest difference to how they approach assignments and exam questions. Their confidence in answering them is elevated, and for sure their results are as well. This is why I have a whole module dedicated just to command words in the 10WGT. It is Catapult 7, and it really is a critical skill for any student in year 9 upwards who needs to work out or sometimes has the feedback on their work that they need to actually answer the question and also give the right amount of detail in their answers. Command words is critical for that. K. K is for knowing that knowledge does not directly equal marks or grades. Now, this is the foundational concept of everything I teach and train students in. Knowledge by itself is almost useless, I will say, in an academic sense, if your teen doesn't know how to apply that knowledge to the way a question asks or a mark scheme requires. Hence, the study success formula. Knowledge plus application equals success. Now, that was the very first episode of this podcast, episode 1. So definitely go check that out if you haven't heard it before, or give it a second listen if it's been a while, because I am certain that you will now hear something differently or pick up something extra from it second time around. Okay, so that is our top line, ROCK, rock. Did you get some checked off? Did you get some checked off? And if so, that is awesome. Those are definitely some of the really critical skills and concepts for your teen to grasp and be able to do. And if not, that's okay. It's going to become your action plan. Okay, next line down. Let's start with the S of solid. S is for stopping the spaghetti throwing, aka they no longer end up writing everything they know in response to a question or for an essay, hoping that some of it is going to get them some marks. Now, this is definitely linked to those command words. You will see there are lots of interlinkages between these skills. I call it the skill web. Let me say that again more clearly. I call it the skill web. That didn't come across very clearly. I call it the skill web. If your teen isn't sure of exactly what the question is asking, then they might well end up feeling like they just want to or kind of need to write everything they know about the topic. And this is far from an optimal strategy, because it means A, they're likely going to run out of time in an exam or go way over the word count in an essay because they are writing more than they need to. And they likely won't hit the top marks because their response won't count as being clear or focused as maybe it needs to be, especially in extended responses. Now, heads up, I'm going to talk more about this issue of running out of time and other elements related to exam technique. I already know what I'm going to talk about in episode 101. So definitely come back next week for that. Okay, next, another O. This O is for being outcome orientated. In other words, they plan according to tasks and outcomes rather than just time. So they don't just say, okay, I'm going to go work on my essay this evening, or I'm going to do an hour of business studies revision. They don't say that. There are so many better ways and so many benefits to making this outcome orientated. What it does by having an outcome in a specified amount of time, something specific that they are going to produce, it then reduces their overwhelm because they don't see it as one big task. It chunks it down. It will make them much more productive because they have a focused thing to get done. And it also links back to making things active rather than passive. Like I talked about earlier, they're not just saying, hey, I'm just going to go revise this topic or work on this thing. They know exactly what they're going to be doing with that information. How are they going to know that they know it? So if they have to specify exactly what task, what outcome, maybe what subtask they need to complete for an assignment, then they need to know exactly what they need to do for each step and how they are going to execute each step. So this system immediately shows up any gaps that they can then proactively solve for, not wait until they're getting stuck and it's 10 p.m. at night and that assignment is due in the next day. Okay, next is L. L is for levels of response. Now, I say this in relation to mark schemes and success criteria, in particular for extended tasks and extended response or essay style exam questions. So does your teen know the difference between making their evidence appropriate versus discerning, and what that counts as on a mark scheme? What about detailed versus comprehensive for their research? This is where I see so many students being unwittingly held back through the descriptors in a mark scheme, because sometimes those descriptors are not as specific as they could be, and students aren't sure of what that actually looks like in a response. Okay, I is for identifying the root cause of any procrastination. So most students want to, I feel, most of the time, just get their work done. Even the most committed and motivated of us, though, at some times have ended up procrastinating. We just can't seem to get ourselves to get a particular task or item on our to-do list done. We can't get it crossed off. We just don't seem to complete it. Here is the secret. It is not about motivation. So I want to share with you what one parent, Alison, said in her feedback to me for this episode. She said that it has been really useful to discover that procrastination for her teen is actually not to do with motivation, but instead likely down to them thinking, I don't know what I'm doing, or I don't know how to do it, or I just don't really see the point of it. I don't see why I need to be doing it. It is usually one of those three things keeping students in that procrastination mode. And no amount of motivation is suddenly going to make those things become clearer. They have to actually solve for those causes of procrastination. Okay, D. D is for one of my favorites, doing it anyway. So just a few days ago, I will tell you that I was covering a Year 7 religion class. I use this more and more often these days. And I asked this student why she wasn't really doing the thing that she was supposed to be doing in that moment. She wasn't really on task, but she wasn't doing anything naughty. And she just said, I just don't like religion. She said, I just don't like religion as a subject. She doesn't enjoy it. And so my answer, whereas I think, years ago it would have been trying to sort of G her up and make her like it. I just said, well, that's okay. You don't have to like it. So rather than trying to convince teenagers as to why this might be useful to them at some point or why they could find it interesting, these days I tend to just spin these situations as an opportunity to practice doing things even when we don't want to or when we don't even like them. Because I actually think this is one of the most useful life experiences that we can develop. I hate cleaning the bathroom, but I do it. Sometimes I don't want to go walk the dog, but I do it. And I am all for doing more of what we love in life, but I do think we also need to build that skill or that mental toughness of doing things we don't love to do as well. Because then I think we make life a lot easier to be successful in. I think it's a heck of a lot harder if we just can't seem to get ourselves to do the things we don't want to do. Bit of a soapbox moment there, but that is my message on that. So we've gone rock and solid. Have a look, see how many boxes you have got checked off. I don't even honestly think that I would have someone in the 10-week Great Transformation Program, a recent graduate, ticking every single one of these boxes. They are always going to have things that they want to work on, that they are still trying to build as a skill. Maybe they've let it slip, they've sort of forgotten about it a little bit, and we need to bring it back to the surface. That's exactly what this is for. And for those of you whose teens aren't in the 10-week grade transformation program or aren't in next level coaching, like I said, this hopefully is a bit of a roadmap or an action plan to pick out one or two things to try to work on, okay? And take some of these concepts and work on them. All right, last section. We've done rock and solid. Next and finally, student. Okay, you ready? S. Now, we couldn't have an S, really, could we, without the word stress. A rock solid student does not have zero stress. Spoiler alert, maybe a little bit of an unfortunate fact. Instead, they have some manageable moments of stress and they accept that they will experience some stress along the way, but we do minimize unnecessary stress by using all of the skills and the strategies, many of which I'm mentioning here. For example, they're going to be less stressed for exams because they know that they can quickly and accurately dissect any question that they are faced with, but they also turn the natural stress that they are absolutely going to feel when they're going into an exam or any other high pressure environment, they turn it to their advantage. Now, I did a whole episode on this in episode 73. It was titled, Not All Stress is Bad. Because, of course, whilst long or intense stress levels are damaging, the adrenaline and the focus that short-term, low to moderate stress generates can actually serve your teen when it comes to them performing in exams and working to deadlines in their study. Okay, T. Topic traps are avoided. Now, half of Catapult 9 in the 10-week program is simply dedicated to this concept because it is so important, especially for essays and extended responses and inquiry tasks. But in a nutshell, I can sum it up as this. A rock-solid student will respond to the exact focus of a question rather than writing about whatever topic is covered in the question. Now, this definitely overlaps for sure with the spaghetti throwing that we mentioned earlier, and I teach a 2-step topic and focus system on how to avoid topic traps and stop the spaghetti throwing, the waffle, the vague kind of essays and discussion writing, so that your teen identifies the exact focus of the question and constructs a focused, relevant, well-structured and succinct, yet also detailed response. Next up, U. U is for universal use of strategies. Because everything I share is strategy and skill-based. So it can be applied across any and every subject, all different syllabus or curricula or exam boards. So as an example, the 3 steps of analysis that I train students in are the exact same 3 steps of what to look for and include when they are analyzing data from a science experiment or when they are analyzing a quote from a Shakespeare play. This universal nature of strategic study is why students see and get such an improvement across all of their study and all of their subjects. And parents often save, I will say, a lot of money because they're not having to hire multiple tutors for all different subjects. D. D is for different formats. Converting information across different formats and into different formats is what ensures your teen actually understands and is processing what they are learning. I literally just talked about this an hour ago on our group coaching call. One student, Lily, wrote into me. She shared her feedback in the lead up to this episode. She's a 10WGT graduate, and she said that one of the most important things she learned was that, these are her words, I'm going to read this out from the actual email. She said, just reading text doesn't help us, but it gives us the sense that we know it when actually we don't. And that is the issue. And that is what I was talking to a student about earlier on the coaching call. When your teen is studying in ineffective ways, in passive ways, it lulls them into a false sense of security. It's what I call the familiarity delusion. They think they know and understand the content, but they don't really know it. It's simply familiar to them. And so this is when students tell me they go blank in exams. They didn't go blank. They just never truly understood or processed the information in the first place, which I know sounds a little bit harsh, but it's almost always true. Okay, we've got 3 to go. You guys still with me? Stick with me. Here we go, last 3. E. This is my favorite. E is for exam technique. Now, I'm going to talk a lot more about exam technique in episode 101. I have already decided what I'm going to talk about in that episode. This is literally what is responsible for students thinking they did well in an exam, but then getting a disappointing result, whatever disappointing is for them. It's down to exam technique. Now, there are 6 elements of exam technique. They are all in Catapult 6 of the 10-week Grade Transformation Program. They include time management, the exact system for reading and dissecting a question carefully, being able to predict the mark scheme. That is a huge one. Of course, they're not going to get the mark scheme in an exam. They're so used to getting success criteria in assignments and essays. Doesn't mean they can't figure it out for themselves, though, on the spot. N is note-taking. Now, I'm not sure if I've said this on the podcast before. I've definitely said it before, maybe on webinars, maybe on Facebook Lives, but maybe not here. But I almost didn't put note-taking into the 10-week Grade Transformation Program. But my goodness, I'm so glad I did. Because I just didn't realize just how much students, A, value it, and B, don't already have the skills of effective note-taking. So they are ending up spending way too long on taking notes or just having ineffective notes. Or they're taking notes that are just almost copied out word for word because they're not really sure which parts are important, which aren't. They're not condensing, they're not processing the information just because they don't have the how to do it effectively. And I will also say they're so often typing their notes instead of handwriting them, which I totally get. I get why they do it. It's faster, it's easier. So they think that they're getting more done, but actually faster and easier is not helpful when it comes to processing information. I will say in the 10WGT, I have a bonus section in the note-taking module. I have whole 9 reasons why, unless they have a specific diagnosis that states they should be typing, why they need to be handwriting their notes. And I will say, well over half of all of our grads mention somewhere in their review or in their feedback that having proper note-taking systems and steps and layouts and knowing which ones suit different types of topics or subjects better was one of their favorite or their most useful things in the program. So I had to also put it in here. Finally, last bingo box, T. T is for tactical study, using specific systems, steps, or techniques in different tasks that will maximize, as we mentioned earlier, that return on effort, ROE. So that might mean proactively prioritizing specific practice questions or topics when they're doing tactical revision, especially when there is limited time. Knowing what is going to get marks and what won't, and using their time accordingly, allocating time and spending effort and time on things accordingly. Knowing about how to read with purpose and using that method when they are first reading a new novel or play or even watching a new documentary or movie that they might be studying. Making tactical choices of topics in open tasks. This is a huge one. So many students are choosing the one that they are most interested in or they think they already know the most about. That might not necessarily mean it's the best, the most tactical option to choose from an assessment or mark scheme, or even just ease of getting it done perspective. So T is for being tactical. And there we have 16 boxes, 16 ways to become a rock solid student. Ask yourself, have a look, how many can your teen tick? Definitely let me know if you're listening to this on the podcast. Send me an email, support@rocksolidstudy.com. And maybe in your score, also let me know what is one that you think they really need to work on, I promise to reply with a bit of a pointer. So if your teen has been through the 10-week Great Transformation Program and is maybe feeling a little bit rusty on anything, then have them use their workbooks to review anything they need to, recap, revise some of those strategies and techniques, or you can always enroll them into Next Level Coaching in our Next Level enrollment so we can take them through, and I will give them the support to make sure they keep developing, honing, and accurately applying all of these skills. And of course, if your teen is in years 9 to 12 or years 10 to 13, depending on your school system, wherever you are, and you would love for them to become fully trained in all of these skills, strategies, techniques, and more, then definitely check out the 10-week Great Transformation Program. It is at www.greattransformation.com/join. There is a whole contents list of everything we cover on there and plenty more information as well, including some wonderful bonuses. And finally, I would love to ask just one thing of you as we hit episode 100. If you have found anything from this podcast helpful, even anything from any of my webinars or free resources or paid trainings, I would really appreciate it if you would share this podcast so that others can benefit as well. Because I really do think that students are a little on the back foot, to be honest, when it comes to their confidence and their ability to perform to their potential in education and assessments. And it is not their fault. It's because they are not explicitly trained in how these things work, the concepts behind them, and exactly how to build the skills to be able to show they know, show they have their subject knowledge in specific assessments and exams, which is, of course, so often where they are being judged. So I am going to be working hard to be able to reach more and more parents and students with this information and insight. And if you are able to help me in any way, that would be fantastic. Please share this podcast as a post on your social media. It could be a share in your WhatsApp group. It could just be on a text. It could just be in a good old-fashioned chat with a friend that you catch up with. I promise I will not let you down, and that I will continue to do my best to serve them and you and your teens in the best ways that I can. So, happy bingo playing. Thank you for being here for episode 100. And here's to 100 more. You're ready to have your teen achieve their best possible results with less stress, then I want to invite you to enroll them in the 10-week Great Transformation Program, where they're going to learn the key concepts, skills, and strategies to catapult their performance in assessments and exams. It's risk-free. They either achieve bigger and better results with a whole lot more confidence in 10 weeks, or we refund you in full. Just head over to www.rocksolidstudy.com/program, and I'll see you there.